I slowly looked around the sparsely furnished living room. It was still hard for me to believe that after 5 years of living in the same apartment, I was moving to a new and much better apartment complex. Most of my belongings have already been transported or put into storage. I have only the essentials left at my disposal to survive until the relocation. In a couple of weeks, I will finally move in and get an apartment that is 1,000 square feet larger than here in this apartment, and at the same time I will start using the most modern household appliances. It's not that I suffered much in my old place. No, my apartment was quite spacious, considering that I lived in it alone. But thanks to my rather frugal lifestyle and the big promotion I recently received at work, I was open to change and ready to enjoy the delights of a better life. And an additional pleasant bonus for me will be that I will finally get rid of the annoying and clingy shadow of the manager of this apartment complex. Ever since he was hired 2 years ago, he's been watching my every move in the apartment like a hawk. Time after time, this manager announced his next visit to fix, as he said, various problems in my apartment, which I did not complain about at all. I tried to avoid his company because every time I suffered from his thinly veiled obscene hints, such as the need to clean the pipes when he repaired my garbage chute, or from the comments about my hot little bed when he checked the ceiling fan in my bedroom. Anyway, every such renovation, for some reason, required the manager to enter my bedroom, and after each of his departure, with a smug grin on his face, I had the feeling that he had managed to secretly rummage through my underwear. My complaints to the management of the management company were ignored. I couldn't prove my accusations, and they appreciated the fact that he was actively involved in the renovation of the entire apartment complex. That's how I suffered until I got a lucky chance. One of my friends was transferred to a new job in Europe. She had just signed a 1-year lease on her apartment complex when she was informed of her new job. My friend paid for 6 months in advance and didn't want to earn an extra headache by fiddling with the refund and dealing with the penalty clause in the rental agreement. Since her new job was very urgent, I would have done my friend a great favor by moving into her apartment. I also took into account that the lease term of my new home was subject to further extension. So, 6 months of free rent, the apartment is clearly better than I had before. A more convenient location, plus, goodbye, fast-paced dude. Oh yes, I grabbed onto it in the blink of an eye. And yet, still, even this condo wasn't the place of my dreams. What I still dreamed of was a house overlooking Lake Michigan, located next to Chicago's Magnificent Mile. But since Prince Charming was in no hurry to find me and give me a crystal slipper, I had to take what I could. This was especially true for boys. Yes, I went on dates, and I wasn't at all horny or promiscuous, but I felt like I was kissing a whole bunch of frogs in search of the right man. And all to no avail. The last one was Jack Simmons, a guy I knew from work. He kept hitting on me and hovering around me relentlessly until I finally agreed to a date. Jack invited me to dinner at a pretty decent place, and while we were talking, everything was fine. Nothing spectacular, though, so I eventually agreed to another date with him next Saturday. And then they brought us the check, and he looked at me with such an innocent look and said that he had left his wallet at home, and could I pay for it? It's worth mentioning that for some reason, he got really angry when I refused to let him follow me to my apartment. That's a cheap bastard. So, Saturday came, and I was hanging around the apartment looking for an excuse to cancel an appointment, when suddenly the doorbell rang. I opened the door and found on the threshold a woman of completely nondescript appearance, whom I had never seen before. She was accompanied by a burly black man, as well as 6 children of all ages, from almost grown teenagers to toddlers. A mountain of luggage was piled up behind such a motley gathering, and a large pit bull was trying to squeeze forward through the stockade of legs, growling and pawing, whose appearance immediately caused me to have bad premonitions. Since Madame seemed to have no intention of observing proper guest etiquette, which usually consists of greeting and explaining the purpose of her visit, I took the initiative and started the conversation first. Hello?" I said questioningly, looking in surprise at this outlandish ensemble that suddenly appeared on the threshold of my house. The strange lady just stared at me. As the seconds ticked by, she continued to stare at me without saying a word. I couldn't figure out what she wanted, so I turned my questioning gaze to the big black man. He had a bored expression on his face, and it didn't help me either. Then I looked at the children, The eldest was immersed in her mobile phone, scribbling messages like a machine gun, and the three youngest were busy drawing a tattoo on the baby's body with a pen so that it corresponded to the prison tattoos already adorning their own hands. I turned my gaze back to this woman and repeated, "Hello." However, she was still as silent as a fish, continuing to stare at me. Probably, this lady doesn't speak English, I guessed, feverishly starting to remember my primitive Spanish and phrases from it that had been stuck in my head since school. However, our conversation should have been very short, because all I could have done was ask where her beer was and where the toilet was. That was all the knowledge I had in Spanish. Buenos dias? There was no reaction. Hola? Uselessly. Bonjour? I courageously switched to French. Figs there. Not bonjour. Guten Tag? Not that tag, but nothing at all. More precisely, like peas against a wall. Ciao. Nope, again. I was completely baffled by the lack of any response. Oh my God. It dawned on me. Maybe she was Canadian? I hooted, hoping that this tundra owl would finally understand me. Damn, it's the same stuff. The communication level is 0. I tried to remember the words I knew in Russian, Chinese, Indian, or Japanese. Oh, eureka. Sushi. I blurted out in a last desperate hope. Are you and Donovan? This mysterious woman finally opened her mouth and uttered the first words. Thank God. She spoke English. The woman, followed by her entire horde, rushed after me into the apartment. I'm Claire Simmons, and you're sleeping with my husband, she angrily proclaimed, chasing me right after the pit bull. Do you think your husband is a dog? I asked, barely managing to fend off the pit bull's attacks and jumping onto the seat of a kitchen chair to escape from the imminent threat. Unable to calm down, he walked around the kitchen, sniffed at one of my indoor plants and, apparently deciding that it was suitable, attached himself to it and began to actively work his dog basin in a new way. A madam with many children stared at me in confusion. No, my husband is not a dog. Well, maybe he's a dog, in a way. No, my husband is Jack Simmons, and you're having an affair with him, she said accusingly, pointing her index finger at me. What the hell are you talking about? I'm not having an affair with him, I asked indignantly. I carefully swung my legs off the chair, still keeping my eyes on the pit bull, which had merged in ecstasy with my vegetation. Seeing how the leaves were shaking and twigs were shaking from his fierce pressure, I pointed at the dog and resolutely demanded, "And make him stop messing with my plants. You'd better let the lady do her job. She'll be done in a minute. Do you have a beer?" There was a deep growl from a black man who, uninvited, opened my refrigerator and stuck his head in there, examining the contents. In disbelief, I turned to the woman. "Did you name the dog lady?" She snorted. "The lady is confused about her orientation. I'm trying to convince her veterinarian to perform a sex reassignment surgery on our girl. She will be happier and better adapted to life as a female." As if remembering something important, this woman furrowed her brows belligerently. "But enough of this. Don't even try to dodge and knock me down. We're here because you're sleeping with Jack, my husband." I tried to calm the situation down and said conciliatingly, "Look, I've only been on one date with him, and I didn't know he was married. He never wore a ring. This is not an excuse to destroy a happy family." "I'm sorry," she said. "He's been stalking me for months." I couldn't stand it. He never mentioned his family, and I'm not having an affair with him. Damn it, I haven't even kissed him. I was trying to figure out how to avoid the date I had set for tonight. Her eyes narrowed uncomfortably. "What do I hear? Is my wonderful Jack not good enough to date you? How dare you insult my husband?" While I was dazedly searching for words to answer her, my cell phone rang. "Hi, and I just wanted to tell you that I'm looking forward to seeing you." Jack's cheerful voice came on the line. "And don't forget to bring enough cash for tonight, okay? There's no date tonight." I snapped irritably. "You forgot to tell me you're married. And your wife is here with me now. Which one is it?" Damn, Casanova stumped me with this question. "Which one is it?" I hissed, struggling to remember the intruder's name. Yes, Claire. Her name is Claire. Wait a minute. How many wives do you have?" "4," he reported. But one day, I'm going to file for divorce in Mexico to get rid of two of them. Well, yes, of course. And you'll still have one more wife than you need. Oh my God, and I see you in a whole new light. Your jealousy doesn't look very pretty, he said sadly. I hope one day you will be able to overcome your hatred. In the meantime, here his voice brightened up again. I'll drop by your place in an hour and we'll go on our date. Listen, you idiot. Come here. Get your Claire, along with the whole family, and get the hell out of my life. I shouted into the phone. I ended the call just in time to see the black thug walk past down the hallway, carrying my only six-pack of beer under his arm, and disappear with his loot into my bedroom. I'd appreciate it if you didn't swear in front of my kids, Claire said primly, pursing her lips. I pointed to a black man who was already closing the door to my bedroom. Who the hell is that in my bedroom? I exclaimed. Oh, that? This is Tyrone, my eldest son, she explained with a nonchalant wave of her hand. Son? He looks 20 years older than you, Claire, and he's black. Claire held up her index finger. Tyrone is only 14 years older than me, and he's an adopted child. I've spent countless hours trying to help him get through the severe psychological trauma inflicted by small-minded people like you. First his parole officer, and now you're going there too. Let me get this straight. Did you adopt an adult black man into your family? I asked, even though I already knew the answer. Shame on you and Donovan. Claire flashed her eyes and clasped her hands. If I had known, I would never have agreed to move in with you and bring my family here. What? What does it mean to move in with me? I never agreed for you to move in with me. Stunned by such news, I shouted. Caught up in this exchange, I only noticed the threat at the last moment, having managed to jump on a kitchen chair when the dog had already tried on how it would be more convenient for her to start fucking my leg again. At that moment, Claire's other son, who looked about 10 years old, came up to us. Mom, she's blocked all adult channels on TV, he complained. Don't worry, son. I'll find out the password from her, and I won't let her interfere with your upbringing, she soothingly stroked his shaggy head, after which he returned back to the rest of the backbones. And Claire, with her hands on her hips, turned her attention back to me. And there was no way I could stay in the house after the disgrace you caused me with your promiscuous affair with my husband, she replied, shaking her head ruefully when I asked her why she had suddenly decided to move in with me. I thought the right decision would be to leave Jack, move here, and commit you to taking care of all of us. This will be the only worthy act on your part that will help atone for your grave guilt. Claire. My dumbfounded mind searched for the right words that could put an end to this absurd nightmare. Listen, Claire, since I'm such a bad role model, wouldn't it be better for the children if you returned home and sorted out the situation with your husband? Nah, it's not going to work right now, Anne, she shook her head. Because of what you did, Jack, as soon as I gave him my ultimatum, I immediately called my first wife and asked her to come back to him. She was furious after she had a fight with Jack and left him, and then she found out that I immediately took her place, moving in with him. I don't think she'll make that mistake again, she chuckled. But you're his wife, Claire, I protested. Yes, but right now I do not know if I will remain a permanent wife after he gets a divorce from his two Mexican women. This madhouse seemed to make me really dizzy. Claire, I'm moving out in 2 weeks. There's no way you can stay with me, I said flatly. Oh, where are we moving to, Anne? The legitimate Mrs. Simmons immediately made a hunting stance for a quarter. Before I could blurt out my new address, I caught the "we" in her question, and a danger signal howled in my subconscious, holding my tongue. Fortunately, at that moment I was distracted by the reappearance of Black Tyrone, who came out of my bedroom, carrying something in his arms towards the bathroom. Claire, why is Tyrone taking my silk slip that cost me $300 to the bathroom? And, she sighed, looking at me as if I were an unreasonable child. Tyrone has certain natural needs that oblige him to express himself and generously share his talents with the world around him. Of course, you won't mind that, as she spoke. Claire watched her big son disappear into the bathroom with affection. Are you saying that he's going to express himself generously? All over my silk negligee? I couldn't believe my ears. Her other son stormed into the kitchen, preventing me from hearing Claire's answer. Wait a minute, darling, Claire said, stopping him and turning back to me. You know what, an underwear for 300 bucks? Seriously? So how is Tyrone going to make do with my bras and Walmart briefs now, after you spoiled him for nothing? She sighed, clearly reproaching me for my worldly stupidity. However, I guess that's what you deserve after you've given up on the sacred concept of marriage, Claire informed me instructively. Then the doorbell rang, and I looked down at the lady, who seemed satisfied with raping the leg of my chair and temporarily exhausted. The way was clear, and I jumped down to the floor to open the door in a hurry. When I did, I saw a very handsome man with a bouquet of roses in his hands. Hi, I'm Dan Sullivan, he smiled when he saw me. I must say that you are even more beautiful than I was told about you. His smile was charming, and the flowers he handed me were wonderful. Naturally, I was embarrassed, but I was also pleasantly thrilled that this handsome stranger had suddenly appeared on my doorstep, paid me a very flattering and, apparently, sincere compliment and presented me with a luxurious bouquet of flowers. Damn, he had a sweet smile. The flowers had not even managed to get into my hands when I was thrown to the side with all my strength and slammed into the wall, as if I was playing hockey with someone from the Chicago Blackhawks. Hello, Dan. I'm Claire, your soulmate on a blind date. Thank you so much for the roses. The damned mother of an unholy family purred in a honeyed voice. I was pleased that Dan looked very disappointed that Claire showed up at the door instead of me. I'm sure my roommate will be able to find a vase to put them in, the faded twirl added. She handed me the flowers, arching an eyebrow significantly at the same time, expressing her demand that I disappear as soon as possible and leave her alone with handsome Dan. Wait a minute. Damn it, just a minute. Claire, so you come here accusing me of having an affair with your husband, and now you're just going on a date? I showed her, wincing and rubbing my shoulder, which hit the wall when she slammed me into it. Holy shit, and I told you not to swear in front of my kids. They're very impressionable at their age. Do you understand that, you fucking idiot? Stop it, she screamed. Wait, I don't date married women, Dan exclaimed, staggering back from the furious Claire. Dan, wait a minute. In fact, it's nothing more than a technical obstacle. Claire turned back into a purring kitty in the blink of an eye and tried to cuddle up to him, but he backed away from her. Anne, could you please? Claire pleaded with me. Stunned, I snapped. I'm not going to participate in the debauchery of your 6 children. Dan stared at Claire in horror. 6? You're married, you have 6 kids, and you expect me to go on a date with you? A mother with many children made it clear. Actually, I have 7 of them, if you count Tyrone. Tyrone? Who's that? Dan croaked. As if by order, Tyrone came out of the bathroom at that moment, the pitiful remnants of my former silk negligee fluttering on his powerful torso. Several characteristic wet and whitish spots were clearly visible here and there on the fabric. Wearing this trophy armor, Tyrone disappeared back into my bedroom, clearly pleased. So, I said, feeling embarrassed in front of Dan, this is Tyrone. Ahem. I think the best thing for me is to go home and forget about everything I've seen here. Get that dog away from me, Dan suddenly shouted. Hurry up, get on the chair. I shouted in response and Dan, somehow managing to kick the lady, jumped onto a chair with an almost acrobatic leap, landing next to me. Dan, you're not helping a lady get used to a healthy lifestyle at all. I can't even imagine what her therapist would say about that, Claire chastised him. Of course, my dear, she gently stroked his tousled hair. Just tell them your aunt, and we'll pay for the delivery. An aunt, and we'll sit with you while your new Uncle Dan and I go on a date tonight. Who the hell do you think you are, Claire? Suddenly, a rude shout rang out from the threshold. I will not tolerate my wife going on dates. Jack Simmons stumbled into my apartment through the front door, which had been left open after Dan Sullivan's previous appearance. Jack was accompanied by a plump and fat-assed woman of easy virtue and depraved appearance, phlegmatically rolling a chewing gum in her mouth. Seeing that we were all staring at his companion, Jack explained, "This is Wendy. I met her on the corner. I thought that if Anne was really going to cancel our date, then why waste the evening? Listen, Anne, can you lend me $100 for Wendy's fee?" Before I could answer with a categorical no, Wendy spat out her gum and screamed when the lady, who had regained his strength, settled down on her leg and began cheerfully scribbling with his pit bull device in the best traditions of the Energizer Bunny. For heaven's sake, Wendy, let the lady have a little pleasure. I'll make it up to you later and compensate for your inconvenience, Jack promised his friend. That's just like you, Jack. You think about the needs of everyone around you, except your own wife. Claire, who was angry, attacked her husband from the other side. That's why I called your parents to come here and shame you for the way you treat me. I have to stay at home while you satisfy half of Chicago. She shook her fists. Are you the one staying at home? Well, yes, of course. Don't make me laugh. What kind of house is there, Claire, if you're sleeping with the other half of Chicago? Hubby did not remain in debt. Bullshit, Jack. I have always been faithful only to you. Fortunately for me, in the middle of this family squabble, the manager of the complex appeared in the open doors, apparently on his next repair visit. Oh ho ho, what do I see? Like Santa Claus, he grinned triumphantly. You have a pet here, which is a violation of the lease agreement. You have a box full of illegal roommates, which is a violation of the lease agreement, and this disorderly noise that you have created here is also a violation of the lease agreement. Thus, and Donovan, he announced solemnly, by the authority vested in me by the management company, I hereby order you to clear the premises immediately. I saw this little sweaty fat man grinning maliciously, as if taking revenge on me for rejecting all his past harassment. Carl, you can't kick us out in the cold, Claire shouted from the side. Oh my God, Claire, what are you doing here? The fat-assed manager rushed to her, hugged her and sucked his plump lips into Claire's lips, right in front of the stunned Jack. Is that how loyal you are to me, Claire? Stop it, he yelled. Well, right now I'm calling your parents so that they can come and look at their cheating daughter. Jack pulled out his phone and started dialing a number. As the kitchen commotion continued, I noticed, still perched on my chair, that Tyrone had entered the bathroom again, this time with another pair of my underwear. I mentally said goodbye to my gorgeous Victoria's Secret Black Widow set. Meanwhile, a crowd of young ogres began to have fun, launching various CDs and DVDs like frisbees around the apartment. They exploded with joyous screams, especially loudly when they hit one of their scandalizing parents. Suddenly, I heard another hubbub coming from the entrance, and it was rapidly approaching my apartment. Soon, a tangle of 4 middle-aged strangers stumbled into the room. The men slapped each other's faces with sweeping slaps, flinching and shaking their heads with each blow. The women were locked in a catfight, punctuated by Indian screams, and from time to time, each with varying success pulled out clumps of hair from her rival with her claws. Judging by the outraged screams and accusations, Dan and I soon found out that Claire's father had cheated on Jack's mother, somewhere behind the scenes of Jack and Claire's wedding. The discovery of the cheating couple caused an unrelenting vendetta in both families, which flared up with renewed vigor and fury whenever the husband and wife's relatives met. Just for a moment, 2 disheveled, overripe MILFs uncoupled, interrupting the quarrel. Jack's mother saw Claire drowning in the arms of the fat manager and exclaimed in shock, "Carl, is that you? What are you doing to her?" This comment changed the balance of power, and the fight boiled over with renewed vigor. After a while, taking advantage of a temporary respite in the commotion, Claire took out her phone and, loudly duplicating the text she was typing, began furiously tapping her thumbs on the keyboard buttons. I am here in and Donovan apartment at 2122 North Clark Street, and my heart is broken. I need your love and support. When she finished, she looked at everyone who was nearby and loudly announced, in just a few minutes, my Facebook page and Twitter account will prove who is to blame. Everyone looked at each other and, one by one, snatching out their gadgets, quickly began to scribble messages to attract the mass attention of the interested public. While the frantic stuffing of messages continued, Dan suggested that we both quietly get down from our chairs and escape from this mess. Lady, I reminded him, this maniac dog looks like that shark from the movie Jaws. Just at the moment when you think everything is safe. Dan shuddered and quickly agreed with me that for now, it was best for us to stay safe straddling chairs. Little by little we started talking, and I explained to him the whole sequence of events before he came here. So you're the same as me? Don't you have anything to do with these crazy people? He asked with sincere hope, and when I assured him that I was the same victim of circumstances, Dan smiled again. Damn it, he has a nice smile. We continued to talk and learn more about each other, while shouting and fierce arguments continued to flare up here and there in the rooms of my apartment. We had already become very close, having found a lot in common between us, when one of the middle-aged ladies let out a particularly piercing scream, becoming the center of attention for a moment. All the squabbles stopped, and we all watched as this woman tried to maintain her dignity while she was talking. I'm shocked by what I see here. God, there are only liars around me. My husband cheated on me. My daughter is a cheater. How could this even happen? Claire's mother cried, pathetically exclaiming these phrases. At this momentous moment, there was an energetic shout from the front door. Pizza delivery. A mustachioed man who looked very much like a Latin American announced, dragging 6 hefty boxes of large pizzas in front of him. A horde of young gluttons, lovers of freebies, rushed out screaming from the next room, after which, pushing aside everyone in their path, they ran into the delivery man, snatched up his boxes in the blink of an eye, and retreated with the same crushing herd stomp, taking the trophies back to their lair. When the pizza delivery guy, who had been knocked over to the side, came to his senses, he turned his head and then his gaze found Claire's mother. The man's eyes instantly flashed with delight as soon as he recognized this lady. "Mary, dear, I didn't expect to see you before Tuesday night," he exclaimed, jumping up and joyfully opening his arms. "Your husband won't be in town that day, right?" "Miguel," Mary let out a howl of sincere indignation. "You told me you were a successful restaurateur. I never thought you were some kind of pizza delivery guy." A second later, a burning Latin American woman appeared before the eyes of the audience, whose frowning face did not bode well for the pizza delivery guy. "Damn it, Maria. I told you to wait in the delivery car," Miguel shouted at her. "Maria, dear, you are the only woman for me. That's why I have your face tattooed on my arm," he hastened to declare. Miguel rolled up his sleeve and proudly showed her his tattoo. Maria hissed like a cobra. "Idiot, this is my cousin Isabella." "No, Maria, it's you," Miguel exclaimed with an air of offended dignity. "Take off your sunglasses, you stupid woodpecker. You have her name written under your tattoo." "The only lady of the heart," barked. "Oh, wait." Miguel slowed down for a couple of seconds. His eyes darted around until he found a way out. "I forgot. It's an old tattoo. Yours is on my other hand. Here, look." Miguel obligingly rolled up his other sleeve and put his forearm under the Latin American woman's nose. "My sister Consuela," Maria screamed. "You bastard, you're satisfying my sister too." "Jesus, Maria, I know that you are somewhere on my body." Hurriedly feeling himself in different places, the deliverer man prudently took a step back. "Wait a minute." After a couple of seconds, he shouted, slapping his forehead with his palm. "I remembered. I wanted you to be near my heart. Here, dear, look at it. My mother. You've satisfied my emoum." Maria screamed so loudly that everyone's ears hurt. She started hitting him over the head with an empty pizza box. While Miguel dodged a hail of blows raining down on him, Claire's mother Mary, enraged by the betrayal she had suffered, joined in beating the hapless mustachioed Casanova with another empty box. At that moment, I noticed Tyrone, who was carrying my next set of bra and panties to the bathroom. "Emasai." I said a memorial prayer in advance for my innocently raped underwear. Soon, the apartment was filled with friends and acquaintances of all the warring parties who responded to the SOS signal from Claire, which was widely distributed on social networks. No sooner had one support group arrived than another was already meeting it. More infidelities were immediately discovered and, calling each other scoundrels and women of easy virtue, the companies rolled up their sleeves and went wall to wall. After a short time, all the free space in my apartment was filled with quarreling couples furiously accusing each other of cheating. Various groups migrated from room to room, playing something like Lotto Cheaters, and trying to find someone in each room with whom they had ever made love. The lady, already staggering slightly, moved from person to person in her eternal quest to mark everyone, until finally this magnificent loving heart gave up, and she turned over and died. Dan and I stood side by side on our chairs, and bowing our heads, honored the memory of the dog who left us untimely, and then moved together to my sofa. The lady was a real champion, Dan said respectfully. I sighed and agreed that we wouldn't see anyone like her again. It's good that the lady went to the rainbow happy, having completed her difficult earthly mission to the end. Meanwhile, we continued to watch the frenzy going on around us. Claire and Jack Simmons had finally reconciled and were now banging on the bathroom door, demanding that their adopted black son Tyrone vacate the bathroom and immediately give them privacy. Small-time bandits from the Claire family enthusiastically began to break furniture for kindling in order to build a bonfire on the living room floor and roast on it. It occurred to me that they could easily convince some idiot present to give them a lighter for just 5 minutes. Some stranger was hanging out at my front door, apparently appointing himself the head waiter. Now he was talking importantly with the newly arrived 4 different sex visitors. I can let you into the guest bedroom. He glanced at the dial of his wristwatch. In about 20 minutes. If you want to wait and settle down in the living room, it will take about an hour and a half. How about scoring a joint? One of the men winked. The only place for smoking is the balcony, but you will have to wait 2 hours to get there. There are too many people who want to, the self-appointed manager warned. While the 4 of them began to animatedly discuss options, another man who appeared from the lobby whispered something to the head waiter. Miller. A party for 6. The chief gatekeeper shouted from the doorway into the crowded corridor, cupping his hands over his mouth. The reserved table in the kitchen is already waiting for you. The 6 lucky ones slowly made their way through the crowd. I noticed one of the guys tipping the head waiter with a $10 bill. Dan nudged me and brought his lips close to my ear. The best. A soap opera? Of all times. I heard his chuckling voice. I giggled too. Even with all the mess and destruction. Fuck it, I've already been kicked out of this apartment, and the only thing I'm really going to miss is my favorite outfits, which were brazenly appropriated and then hopelessly ruined by this Tyrone. Damn, that's why I had insurance. I suddenly came up with the crazy idea of showing off my new gorgeous underwear, as soon as I buy it, to a private audience consisting only of Dan. Do you know about Enrico Fermi, Anne? He puzzled me with an unexpected question. Nevertheless, I was not at a loss. Yes, Dan. This is the scientist who started the first nuclear reaction here in Chicago. That's right, Anne. He looked at me with respect and then continued. There is one thing to remember about nuclear reaction. As soon as it reaches a critical mass, detonation will occur, he remarked, watching as more and more people crowded into my apartment. Listen. I have a couple of seats in the Wrigley grandstand for tonight's game. Would you like to join me? My heart skipped a beat. Are you a Cardinals fan? I asked with a sinking feeling, realizing that a lot depended on Dan's answer. He nodded, although he had no idea how important it was to me. I flashed a smile and undid the top 2 buttons of my blouse. A necklace with a pendant of blood-red rubies, forming the intertwining letters S, T and L of the famous St. Louis Cardinals logo, framed by diamonds, sparkled in the neckline of my chest. The platinum chain sparkled and shimmered in the light. Damn it, I thought. I will definitely sleep with him as soon as I move into my new apartment in 2 weeks. He raised his head and looked into my eyes, then, without saying a word, took my hand and slowly, as if in tow, led me through the swaying crowd. As we left the apartment, we said goodbye to the extremely busy head waiter, who was besieged by those who wanted to get inside. Making his way further to the exit, Dan, like an icebreaker, squeezed through the crowded corridor and hall, while I could only follow in his wake. Clutching my date's sides and mincing after him, I managed to mutter in his ear that I would buy us sausages and beer for the game. He just shook his head. I was the girl he asked out, which meant I didn't have to pay for anything. Damn it, I thought. No, I'll definitely sleep with him in less than 10 days. We finally reached the stairs, and I said, well, after the game, will you let me invite you? Before he could answer, we saw 2 Chicago police officers running up the stairs towards us, their faces tense, their hands at the ready on the handles of their pistols. Without saying anything, we both exclaimed at the same time. You'll need backup. Stopping and panting, the officers looked at the densely packed corridor and both reached for their hissing walkie-talkies, urgently demanding that a police squadron be sent to their aid at 2122 North Clark Street. As we were going down the stairs, Dan turned around and said, "And I have one suggestion instead of the Navy Pier. How about we go downtown and stop by Buddy Guy's?" "Really?" "Dan, Derek Trucks is playing there tonight with Buddy himself. All the tickets for this show were sold out a few weeks ago." I chuckled. "Relax, Ann. I have a reservation. Buddy is my personal friend." Dan winked at me. Damn, damn, damn. I'm going to end up on my back and sleep with him for the rest of the week." An obsessive thought took hold of me, and I agreed with it. Hand in hand, we left the apartment complex. Police cars flocked to the apartment complex from all the surrounding streets and alleys, with the flashing of chandeliers, the quacking of sirens, and the screeching of brakes, like ducks for food. Cops jumped out of them and ran in groups to the entrance, pulling out batons and revolvers as they went. The National Guardsmen who arrived at the square almost simultaneously with the police, like ants in hard hats, erected barricades and cordoned off the surrounding area. 3 police helicopters buzzed over the building, illuminating my floor with powerful searchlights. A little to the side of them, another one was barraging, with the logo of a major TV news network on board. In the spotlight, even we could see from the street that Tyrone had invited a group of transvestites who were dressed only in my underwear, and, pretending to be a corps de ballet, they were doing somersaults that would have been envied even to the cheers of everyone present in my former apartment. Opening the door of his stylish leather-topped Corvette, parked to the side, Dan looked at me and said, "Since you have nowhere to stay for the next 2 weeks, why don't you stay in my 2-story condo? My bedroom has a great view of Lake Michigan in the morning, and I cook a great breakfast." Damn it, I thought, fearing for my wet panties. Well, there's no way in the world I won't be able to resist satisfying him next night. As we were driving away, I asked in a weak voice, "Dan, how many children do you want?" Without looking at me, he just smiled.